Hey everyone, really happy to talk to you today. I'm Stuart Geiger. I'm an ethnographer who is I have a background in history and philosophy of science and sociology of science, and very interested in how science is changing in an increasingly datafied world. And I'm going to talk to you about a project that's been a big collaborative effort between not just sort of a lot of people here at BIDS, including the Careers Working Group, but also the other two research institutes that are funded by the Moore Sloan Data Science Environments Grant, which is the eScience Institute at the University of Washington and the Center for Data Science at NYU. And so together we've been sort of working on a lot of things around career paths, and we wanted to know, who are the people in these three different data science environments, what are the different sort of subgroups and clusters, and what do these different subgroups and clusters do, want, and need. And so we're working sort of towards, sort of recommendations for universities about, what career paths in data science do universities need to create, change, or better support to build a home for this kind of work inside the academy. And so we had a survey that we launched last fall that went to sort of members and affiliates at BIDS, eScience, and CDS. Had a fair number of good responses. Thank you to everyone who received it and took it. And we will be presenting some sort of results from that here. So one thing, we had a pretty good distribution across the three universities, and this is sort of plotting out with this question: do you consider yourself a data scientist, 1 to 5 sort of scale? And what's interesting is we had some people who did not consider themselves data scientists, and we had an interesting distinction between the somewhat yes and the strong yes. So sort of about half the people, a little over a majority, said they somewhat considered themselves a data scientist, and about a quarter sort of had that sort of strong yes. And we could have see some different effects in that based on that. Also, if we break this out by field, the primary field that people identify with, what's interesting is among all of the sort of domain sciences, among both the social sciences, physical sciences, and the life sciences, we see approximately the same distribution of people who consider themselves data scientists or not. One of the sort of heaviest fields about people who consider themselves data scientists was business, economics, and finance, and one of those in that. But we also sort of see these a lot of differences in what people want and what people need across disciplines and fields as well. So that's important to keep in mind when we're thinking about how to support career paths. We also asked a lot of questions about what kind of activities people want to do. How important would it be in your ideal academic position to do things like advising or research work, which are some of the highest sort of rated things that people wanted to do. People wanted to do research for academic publications, as well as advising and mentoring students and leading groups as well. Developing computational resources was one of the sort of ones that had a sort of, that people saw that was very important, also correlates with identification as a data scientist. But I plot out these sort of histograms of responses to show that the responses are not uniform, and there's a lot of interesting subgroups and clusters around people who, for instance, want to do academic research consulting to help research scientists do data science, people who want to write grants and people who don't want to write grants, people who want to teach workshops and people who don't want to teach workshops. These are interesting things to sort of keep in mind as we're creating these new positions. Also, the activity importance also differs, as I said before, based on identification as a data scientist. As I said, developing computational resources strongly correlates with your identification to be as a data scientist, but they're still sort of high for people who don't. There's also a strong cluster of people who consider themselves data scientists and are very interested in research consulting, helping scientists do research. But we also saw across the board, almost every sort of subgroup we can pull out a desire to have to be leading and managing a group or a lab, to advise students in these sort of leadership positions. So that's something that we're thinking about very closely, about how to build in not just a sort of a first track of a career, but a career path, so that people across all aspects of data science can sort of build up their resume, build up their team, and sort of be independent researchers and get principal investigator status for grants, things like that. Openness, and we also ran a factor analysis based on goals and priorities, and we sort of were able to pull out two really compelling factors. One along the x-axis is whether or not tenure was worth it or not worth it, and along the y-axis we have whether or not you want to stay inside academia or go outside academia. The interesting thing is that we have people in all 4 quadrants in this, and we also see that sort of, this also varies, and even people who identify and don't identify as data science are all in all 4 quadrants, as well as a lot of people who are at the margins of this, people who are strongly considering leaving academia, but they are not quite sure yet. And so we're interested in sort of targeting that and sort of understanding the factors at work there. We also had a sort of perceived value of how important various activities are for tenure, which shakes out and sort of is relatively consistent among career stages. And so the highest ones are sort of traditional faculty responsibilities, and then we sort of had ones that people didn't feel like with all of the activities that were associated with data science, like doing open and reproducible research or developing computational resources. People didn't perceive that that would be valuable for tenure. And I think that's one of the important things about an institute like BIDS and all the work that's being done in the new division is to institutionalize and sort of show that these sort of things like software is a form of scholarship that sort of makes contributions to disciplines. We also had a question about sort of your ideal definition of a data scientist. This is the obligatory word cloud. People define it very differently. I won't get into the details there. But we also had things about what structures help you in your career as well. We had a lot of people who, a quarter of people mentioned these kind of ad hoc trainings at events, things like workshops, boot camps, software carpentry, Hacker Within, as things that were important to their career, things that BIDS offers, and also a lot of our allied sort of places across campus, including the D-Lab offer as well. I think it's really important to support those and have those be part of any university support. We also had people talk about mentors and advisors, grants, funding, and foundations, which makes sense, but also networking events was one of the highest things that people also said was important to their career. So to close, our future work, we're going to be doing many more analyses. We're working towards a report. We're actually doing our analyses in Jupyter notebooks so that you can sort of see the output of the results without us having to distribute the private survey data. We're also working on a dummy data set that we can create so others can write their own notebooks, and then we run it on the real live data set and give those responses back. So if you're interested in that, please come talk to me about that. We're also doing surveying data scientists outside the Moore Sloan collaboration, as well as doing a lot of qualitative interviews on career paths and sort of working towards these sort of final reports. So in conclusion, I want to sort of thank Moore Sloan for the funding for this, and also to everyone who took the survey and helped us create the list, including Ali, who was instrumental in helping us generate these lists and spamming people with all those survey requests. Thank you very much.